Hello and welcome. Welcome back. Thank you for joining. Now we'll continue with Vivekananda, whom we left a few weeks back. So that was based on my blogs, which I created based on my reading of his writings around 2013, 2014. And I started reading it even before that. So now we will look into a systematic expose of Vivekananda's error. So first we look into the factual errors, next logical errors, epistemological errors, and internal contradictions, external contradictions, and the whole set of errors categorized and presented to you. But I'll go fast so that you can listen to all these errors and know for sure why he is wrong. So number one, factual errors and errors due to anachronism. What is anachronism? Outdated ideas. So in 1800s, around 1900, 125 years back, Vivekananda thought this is science and no, this is this, but all those ideas are now outdated. Okay, so that is the anachronistic reality about Vivekananda, which we need to face and cancel out those ideas. So the first area is historical interpretation. So Vivekananda portrays ancient Indian history and culture as with a romanticized presentation, embellished, all glorious, the romanticized narrative attached to nationalistic sentiments, painted with spiritual brushing, large strokes with spiritual brush, calling India eternal, spiritual, etc. He is thus obscuring the complexities and nuances of India's past. India, as you know, is full of Hindu history was filled with wars, crimes, oppression of the lower caste, and glorifying this sort of history and making it spiritual, all those things is totally outdated idea. It is for village people. These ideas can be sold even today in village temples, but not for educated people. And second, for biased people, which is not a dearth in India. His glorification of ancient India as a utopian civilization of spiritual enlightenment, it was glorious those days. And such rhetoric is so cheap, so manipulative, so biased, feeding those village people and biased people. Even though India was filled with injustice, war, violence, inequalities, and this characterized historical Indian society. Vivekananda also relied heavily on outdated ideas and discredited theories of race and civilization. His espousal of Aryan supremacy. He believed in Aryan supremacy and that the Hindus were the Aryans or Aryan. Okay, and the Hindu civilization, a Sanskrit civilization, as the Aryan civilization and superior civilization compared to other civilizations. And this reflects a racial bias, not egalitarian or intellectualism, but racial bias and Oriental stereotypes, which was prevalent in Europe at the time. So he was just a man of his time, nothing unique. These are outdated ideas now. You can be sued for them if you hold these ideas of Aryan supremacy and all those things. Such views not only distort historical reality, but also perpetuate harmful ideologies of racial and cultural superiority. So this is not nothing intellectual or fair, not even fair. So he was totally biased and he was fueled by these superiority ideas that he, an Indian, is superior to the Europeans. He, a Brahmin, high caste person, is superior to others, and he has to teach them, he has to tell them. Otherwise, they will not know, they cannot know. They are not superior. He is the superior one, superior race, Sanskrit race, Aryan supremacy. And he held such outdated and wrong ideas. Now we'll move on to scientific errors and inaccuracies. It betrays a lack of understanding of modern scientific principles. He, like any other gurus, tried to, tell this is that. There's a Hindu classical answer, science, or this. Yeah, this is an Hinduism. Okay, so they will give an analogy and make the analogy into a explanation and an argument itself. Analogy becomes an argument. That shows the amount of desperation. They're desperate. So this led to strained interpretation and pseudo-scientific ideas, which you can see with all the gurus, as I said before. Yogananda, even Sadhguru, all of them are pseudo-scientific ideas. And they'll keep telling this is that, consciousness, this is that, that is all they're going to tell, repeat. And they want to paint Hinduism with to look scientific and all. Historical errors, scientific errors over. Now we move on to Vivekananda's teachings containing anachronisms or outdated ideas. So his attempt to apply modern concepts and categories to ancient texts. Okay, so he is mixing outdated ideas, okay, modern science with ancient Hindu philosophy. He has to mix it. There is a desperation. You can see how desperate he is. He can't just allow this to be science. He has to mix it with his ancient Indian philosophy. Okay, the desperate, you can see the desperation in the creation of pseudoscientific ideas. For instance, Vivekananda appropriates evolution, which was new. He was living around the time when Darwin was propounding the theory, or socialism, evolution, socialism, all these new ideas. Whatever is new, whatever is there, they will try to. This is Hindu. Okay, this is a Hindu idea. Okay, they want to misappropriate the terms, not even the ideas. He doesn't care about the ideas. He is just misappropriating these terms, applying it to Hinduism to make it look good. So this just shows how important it is to apply critical thinking to these gurus. Now we'll move on to logical errors. Logical errors, we have logical contradictions as in unity with multiplicity. Okay, calling multiplicity as illusion and calling the unknown as real. It's totally factual error. So what he is telling is this multiplicity is unity. That is the contradiction. Okay, so that level of error is only possible because the people are ignorant and biased. And he has a halo effect and functions on appeal to authority. So this total nonsense, calling multiplicity as unity. You are that, that is you. All this sort of nonsense, all these are logical contradictions. Number two, identity with difference. Again, breaking the law of identity. Okay, there are different things. I, you, it, he. All these differences are dissolved. So that is the second contradiction and called non-duality. So that is the second contradiction, which breaks the law of identity. Third, absolute was relative. So how does the absolute relate to the relative? To the diversity of perspectives and experiences that characterize human existence. Everything appears relative, but for Vivekananda, it is that absolute which is appearing relative. Again, a contradiction, calling these relative things and things which function contingent things as absolute. Again, a contradiction. So, next contradiction is determinism with free will. Some form of monism suggests deterministic view of reality. Okay, everything is fate. Fate is based on karma. However, this conflicts with the intuitive sense of free will, and they themselves asking you to come and join their ashram or follow this guru, make some choices. Okay, if everything is governed by laws, they cannot ask for the choice to be made. There is no choice. Whatever happens is because of the karma in the previous birth. It is determined, and it is not a choice. So this contradiction between determinism and free will presents a philosophical challenge for monistic theories. Next, transcendence versus immanence. What is transcendence? Beyond what can be known by sensory ways. Okay, like seeing, beyond sight, beyond hearing, beyond touching, beyond tasting, beyond smelling. That is transcendent. Immanence is present here. What is you can know. Monism often emphasizes the transcendence of ultimate reality beyond the realm of ordinary experience. However, it also posits the immanence of this reality within the fabric of existence. This raises the logical contradiction of how something can simultaneously transcend and permeate the world of phenomena. Do you understand? So, is it transcending or is it immanent? It cannot be both. How do you even know If ultimate reality is beyond the grasp of human understanding, whether it is transcending or it is immanent. This tension between transcendence and immanence complicates the coherence of monistic metaphysics. So it is either beyond or it is can be known. If it can be known by through our ordinary experience, then it is immanent. If it cannot be known, then it is transcendent. Hindus always say it is immanent because they reach the final stage of their philosophy where you are that God. And you are there and you can experience yourself, and that is immanent. But they will tell that this immanence is illusion. And the transcendence is real. What is seen is illusion, what is unseen is real. Okay, so this tension between transcendence and immanence, this complicates the picture and creates a contradiction. Next, non sequiturs. Ontological assertions, ambiguous definitions, misapplication of analogies, as I said before, appeal to mystical experience, circular reasoning, ignoring counter-arguments as illusions, confusing correlation with causation. All these are non sequiturs of monism, of Vivekananda's philosophy. Logical fallacies, begging the question, circular reasoning, they believe or assume what they need to prove. False dilemma. Okay, so either monism or pluralistic, okay, without considering other possible or alternative nuances which Ramanuja created, okay, Vishishtadvaita, something like that. This fallacy, a false dilemma, monism or dualism, oversimplifies the complexity of metaphysical questions and limits the range of options under consideration. That's a logical fallacy. The next, appeal to authority, appeal to ancient texts. Vedas said this, Upanishads said this. Nobody know. You can go and tell something and tell. Today, you can go give a talk and tell this in the Veda, this in the Upanishad, this in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Nobody knows, nobody reads those things, nobody cares. Okay, but they will give that appeal to authority. Equivocation. As I said, misappropriating the terminology of science for their own ends, number one, and then using vague language as unity, oneness, the spiritual experience of oneness. Nothing can be more equivocating or ambiguous than that. Nobody knows what it is, but that is the solution. You have to experience that. Now you can come out with your own version of it and you can start an ashram. Cherry picking. Selective choosing what is going to support the argument. That's also logical fallacy. Next, composition and division. This occurs by incorrectly inferring that what is true of the parts must also be true of the whole. Okay? This fallacy involves erroneous reasoning about relationship between parts and wholes in complex systems. So in other words, I have a consciousness, therefore there is a divine consciousness. And my consciousness is that consciousness, there is no difference. Okay? And all those things. And that is a composition and division. Logical fallacy. Next we go to appeal to ignorance. It's a very important part of Hindu philosophy that they appeal to ignorance as the main problem. You don't know because what is written in the Vedas and Upanishads as the problem. Okay, that ignorance, and you know that is being solved. This whole teaching, information, fake news is false information, misinformation is all about clearing up ignorance. But some information is not going to clear up ignorance, it is going to lead them into deception if it is not the truth. Ad hominem attacks, attacking Christians, Muslims, all these, characterizing them, on a racial basis. Westerners cannot know the truth, they are not philosophical, they are not spiritual. All these things nonsense. Nothing like that. Nobody is spiritual just because he's born in India. Nobody is spiritual just because he's born in China. Nobody is non-spiritual just because he is in Europe. That sort of nonsense was also present in Vivekananda's ideas. Again, we move on to the cognitive biases, confirmation bias, anchoring bias, availability heuristics, which is restricting the information so that you provide the information based on which they will make the decision which you want them to make. Next is hindsight bias, attribution bias, self-serving bias, bandwagon effect, in-group bias. So 8 biases. Next we move on to epistemological errors, assertions without empirical evidence, appeal to authority, metaphysical speculation, intuition, subjective thinking, but making it objective for everyone. Okay, that is the most unfair thing they did. Okay, speculating, subjective speculation, which he believed is true, based on his subjective experiences, so-called spiritual experience, and he started telling all of you can have it just because I had some blah blah experience. That's the sort of wrong epistemological methodology he was using. Over reliance on subjective experiences, neglect of empirical inquiry, and not to forget labeling, false labeling, using scientific labels for Hindu ideas to make them look good, even though there is no connection. Misappropriating scientific terms, stealing. So next we move on to internal contradictions, unity with diversity, absolute with relativity. These are contradictions, internal contradictions. Free will is determinism, egoless with individuality, detachment with engagement, universalism with particularism. So these are the internal contradictions of Vivekananda's philosophy. And correspondence with external reality or test of correspondence. So that was the test of coherence. It has failed due to all these contradictions which are internal. Now we move on to test for external contradictions or test for correspondence to reality. Here the misalignment with scientific knowledge, historical knowledge, empirical observation, experiential agreement among humans, cultural and historical context, contemporary relevance, and of course racial hierarchical thinking. Okay, caste-based Aryan supremacy thinking. So we come to the end, and if you want to know the details of these errors, you can get the book called Debunking Swami Vivekananda, a Christian Critique. And you can go into these errors, learn them. Most of you do not want to learn them, so I just enumerated them, listed them. Okay, it also makes the video short, and you can also listen. You will know the set of errors, the fact errors. There you get the historical scientific anachronism. There's logical errors. There you get the contradictions, fallacies, and non sequiturs. Next you come to epistemological errors. Then you come to methodological errors. Then you come to internal contradictions. Then external contradictions. The whole set of errors, one by one, I have enumerated. Okay, and this step-by-step expose of errors just proves that Vivekananda's philosophy cannot hold all these errors, and it will collapse as false. Okay, all these errors means, of course, it's false. A lot of errors, it's false. It's neither coherent nor does it correspond to the reality. Therefore, we have systematically, step by step, debunked Vivekananda's ideas. Thank you for joining. May God bless you. Jesus loves you.